Hello, I am Taniya Hussain, your host during the Beat Burnout Summit. Today, my guest is Deborah Hurwitz, who is the founder of Productivity for Perfectionist. Thank you, Deborah, for joining me all the way in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
And she has got masses of accomplishments. She was the music director in Jersey Boys. She's worked on Cirque du Soleil. She's also she's a brilliant coach and mentor. She's the founder and the creator of a brilliant coaching program called Mission Accomplished, and she is also a bestseller of a brilliant book. But I will let Deborah tell you a little bit more about herself. So Deborah, I'm sure I've missed out loads because you
Decades. First of all, Tanya, thank you so much for having me. This is a special experience for me because, of course, we are working together. And so it's really beautiful to watch you do this work in the world, knowing how incredibly creative and passionate you are and the journey that you've been through. And so I know that this is incredibly valuable, what you're offering to people. And I appreciate being asked because, yeah, I absolutely know what it's like to be burnt out. I came out of the gate, I from Princeton University, came out of the gate into New York and went nuts. Like in my 20s, I worked like crazy, and I played my first Broadway show when I was 22, and I composed and conducted my first national commercial when I was 23, and I conducted my first Broadway show when I was like 28. I was go, 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 go. And I started to sort of feel that plateau of like people were catching up and passing me, and I was kind of still doing the same thing. Like I went early and strong and then felt a little tired and a little less passionate and a little more jaded. And I sort of went through rounds of that. Like I would get kind of a cool thing. I'd get a national tour, or I'd work with some really famous person, or get a TV thing, or something would happen. And I'd go, okay, here we go. Now it's going to be like smooth sailing, straight shot to the top, financial ease for the rest of my life. Right. And over, even though I got to claim more and more credits and I put money in the bank, I never felt that ease. I always felt like it was push, go. And part of that is I am a recovering perfectionist. And at that point, I was not recovering, number one. And number two, I am driven, but I was driven in the way that I really put my most masculine, heat-seeking missile, achievement-oriented skills to work. And I didn't really balance out, whether you call it right brain or feminine or artist, creative spirit, that kind of not geared towards worldly fame and accomplishment, but rather geared towards that which I truly love and care about, what really matters to me. I gave that short shrift again and again because I was chasing the career and the resume and the big paychecks. And I succeeded beyond most people in that way, and I have a very respectable resume to show for it. And I'm happy for that resume because it gives me a little bit more credibility when I'm saying I can help you get important stuff done. But the secret is underneath all of that important stuff, like what shows up as big in the world, what I now realize is the important stuff is the stuff that you individually actually care about, your soul's work on the planet. And ultimately, that's what will, with the right strategies, with the right coaching, structure, accountability, consistent steps taken, will actually result in what I'm very blessed and proud, knock wood, to claim now, which is a life that is not just big and awesome looking on the outside, but deeply enriching on the inside, and lucrative in a way that I could not have predicted. Lucrative without effort. Like literally this morning, I have a big project coming up tomorrow, and it was just this sense like, for a moment, I got into that anxiety place, that accomplishment driven, I have to show up or else. It has to go this way or else. The controlling, perfectionistic, every little thing has to be right or it's a shit show. I don't know if we're cursing on this interview or not, right? But that kind of all or nothing thinking, that controlling, that, sort of desperate feeling, need for approval, the need to keep going. That's what leads to the burnout. And that's what also leads us to actually not do our best work out in the world, at work or work out in the world. And so, as I was just saying, I came into this morning with sort of a twinge of that anxiety because, anytime you're doing something new, it's that growth edge. Like, I'm here to tell you guys, you can beat burnout. However, there's no such thing as never being scared again, right? There's no such thing as never being tired again, right? We're human beings. We have our ups and downs. Weathering that storm with grace, with her, is part of the gig, right? Part of what we want to do when we're wanting that, when we're in recovery and wanting to extend that recovery. So I had that moment of anxiety, that twinge of, oh my God, what if, right? And then it was like, oh yeah, let me remind myself of how I'm doing life now, which is not that way, right? And some of the things that I've been able to enjoy telling myself that keep flowing are, remember, the money just keeps rolling in. The money just keeps rolling in, remember. Or it's okay to be you. Remember, you, right? And I say things, this comes from a lot of deep excavation into me really feeling my truth. Like you will hear lots of people talk about law of attraction and affirmations, and I'm one of those people that just, I poo-poo that flat, right? As you know, I'm a no-nonsense person, and there's a lot to be noticed and appreciated about the principles of law of attraction, principles of affirmations, those sort of intentions to excavate what's underneath and break patterns and, do like a pattern interrupt and have life go a different way. Awesome. But, speaking as a perfectionist, someone who works with perfectionists, that is also a dynamite recipe for feeling like you're doing it wrong all the time. Because the oversimplified version of the law of attraction is like, if you just do everything right, if you line up your thoughts and your intentions in your heart and you're in a perfect, awesome space, then everything will go the way you want it to. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And I think a lot of social workers and healthcare professionals that are listening to this, they constantly feel they're doing everything wrong all the time because they have such huge expectations put on them that they have to wear this mask of being credible, being strong, being there for other people, and they can't be themselves. And they're constantly beating themselves up for being, well, they're not allowed to be human. Unless you have a supportive manager and a supportive team, supportive and I see around you, some of us are lucky. I have a very supportive team, but even then, you still have these huge expectations that I'm always getting it wrong, and I'm always. Could you kind of like tell me how you kind of beat that constant statement?
Absolutely. And that's a really great point. And it's interesting, even though in some ways social work and performing artists are almost like opposite careers in terms of how you're serving or how you're showing up. Yeah. But in that way, they are similar in that there is this sense of expectation. Like, you're supposed to be Mother Teresa, beatific, calm, and saintly 24/7, right? I'm supposed to be always on, energized, looking and feeling fabulous. Nothing's ever wrong. Everything's awesome, right? And you're only as good as your last gig. And when you're in social work, you're working with people who are in trouble, right? Who have suffered trauma, where the situation is not good in whatever way, deeply bad, right? Deeply troubling, and you have had some wild triumph of like quite literally saving someone's life or sanity or soul in some way, but then the very next day something terrible happens and now everything's awful, right? And it's the same for an artist, and that way can be the same for an entrepreneur in that way of like you're as good as your last gig. So a real opportunity to beat yourself up 24/7. So to answer your question, I consider this to be kind of a play in two acts. So it's a process. And in parts, it's almost like parallel streams, right? And you want to place your attention into two places. And one is into the place of self-care. We have to remember that we cannot pour from an empty cup, right? We cannot pour from an empty cup. And we have all this guilt because, like, if you got into social work, if you got into helping other people, it's because you really want to make a difference. You're so committed to it. I mean, the pay is crap. The offices don't look pretty. Like, it's not an easy life. It's not a cushy life. It's not a glamorous life. You're not doing it because of the lifestyle or the trappings or the glamour. You're doing it because you want to help people and make a difference. And especially when you feel like you're either treading water or underwater, when you feel like you're always catching up, that the work is never done, you're never doing enough, then you tend to focus harder and harder on going out there to do more. And what happens is you drain not only your immediate reserves, but your deep reserves. And burnout is the process of not just burning through like the sugar of your everyday energy, but burning through like the fat and protein and muscle stores of your body. So you're like skin and bones dragging yourself along, right? You drain the deep reserves and you don't refill your coffers. You don't restore your sanity. literally sanity. And so, and you feel angry at them out there, angry at your circumstances, angry at your, what the hell? Why aren't you understanding? Why aren't you doing what? But it's not about them. It's like when you get low blood sugar and you get super cranky with everybody around you. You have like low life blood sugar and you're cranky with everybody around you. And it's completely understandable. And it's not their fault and it's not your fault. Because you're just thinking, I need to do that thing over there, and I don't deserve, or I don't have the time, or I can't afford to take care of me. Taking care of me has to be secondary to taking care of them. But if you think about the truth of that, if what you really want to do is take care of them, if what you really want to do is serve and contribute, then you actually owe it to them to take great care of you. You actually owe it to them to get better sleep, because that's going to have you make better judgments and be more patient and be more generous, right? You actually owe it to them to take the time to make a good meal, nurture your relationships. The more you feel loved and nurtured, the more you're able to love and nurture. And you have to start with yourself on that. So that's number one, is self-care. You want to say something about that before I go on?
Yeah, self-care is so. I mean, I actually have a WhatsApp group called Self-Care. Simple, and sometimes we make it so complicated, and it can be very simple. Sleep, like meals, the physical health of it, let alone the spiritual and the emotional. But I'll backtrack a little bit, because you said something about the law of attraction. Although I know something about it, I know some people in the audience might not know.
Sure.
Just kind of like explain what that might.
Well, given my take on it, I might not be the best person to give you an objective explanation. Let me just put that caveat out there. And it's actually deep work. It really took of Abraham and Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks, and their books written on it. The Secret was a big hit that's really based on it. There are reams and reams of work and writing and thinking and discussion, at like a Talmudic level on the law of attraction. So I'm sure I can't do it justice, but the basic idea is that what you focus on, the frequency you vibrate resonates other frequencies. So I'm a musician, so the way I think about it is like when I go to my alma mater on the campus of Princeton, there's these beautiful arches that all the singing groups sing in. We resonate, like we shake the stone, we shake the air, and you feel those things coming back at you, right? You can actually feel the waves of energy as sound filling the space, right? There are these cool spots where you can whisper into one thing and the sound goes to, you have somebody else parked in the other corner of the archway, and it sounds like you're whispering in their ear, even though you're 20 feet apart, you're just listening. And because the way the sound grew, it's literally resonating the stone, and it's like tin cans and string, but at a very deep archaeological kind of way. And that's it, like on an energetic level, on a spiritual level, that's the law of attraction, right? That how you vibrate around you and think about, you bring about kind of thing. And I think that there are really great ways to look at that in terms of energy waves, in terms of kind of the levers and dials of the universe that we don't necessarily get on a conscious or sensory level, but that are still in operation. I do think that there's some truth to that. However, it gets, dumbed down and posted on Facebook and delivered in programs in such a way that if you're a person who worries about getting it right, worries that they're not doing enough, then it's like all of a sudden it's like my fault that my life sucks or I'm unhappy if I'm not vibrating at the right level, if I'm not sending out the right frequencies, if I'm not thinking about the right things all the time. And the truth of the matter is our brains are busy ass mofos. Our brains are busy, right? And they are going, and the thoughts are relentless. And you don't control what arises in your consciousness. You do not control what arises any more than you control the weather. What you control is what you do with it. So you can't control that it rains, but you can control what you're wearing when you walk outside, right? And if you're properly suited up with galoshes and a raincoat and an umbrella, then you can have a perfectly awesome time splashing around in the rain. Right? And it's the same thing with our own thoughts and feelings. If something shows up, and it's a trigger for anxiety or fear or exhaustion. Like, aren't there things where you just feel fine and then you think of something and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Right? You can trigger your own tiredness, and it's not about your physiological state. It's about what shows up and how you're responding to it. That's really where I go into real action around that stuff.
Can you tell me what was the lowest point or the darkest moment where you realized you were burnt out? What was the
Oof.
was it
I have
a
two
moment?
big ones. Yeah, no, I have two big ones, but I'll tell you the because and I really did think like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. There's like something desperately wrong with me, and I don't know how I'm going to fix it. I'm broken in pieces on the floor, and I don't know how to fix it. And I was in my early 30s, and I had just come off of a tour with Cyndi Lauper and Cher. By all accounts, my life looked amazing. I was the skinniest I had ever been. I looked like a rock star. I had just come off of this glamorous national tour with really famous people on stage every night, my name being yelled for 20,000 people. I had a sexy, tall, and handsome boyfriend, and I had just like gone to my like 10th college reunion or something, and it was like the triumphant return of the successful musician, right? All that stuff looked amazing. And I had just come out with my own solo album, and I was about to, catapult into stardom as a solo star. And a number of things happened in quick succession. I came back from the tour feeling completely exhausted and like bewilderingly disoriented. I remember waking up on my couch in the middle of the night trying to figure out what hotel, what city I was in, what day, when I had to get up, when was the call, right? Like I was so disoriented. I looked at the piano in my own living room and thought, wow, this hotel room has a piano. Like it was so screwed up from being on the road, right? And my boyfriend broke up with me, and the album went nowhere. And the manager that was supposed to make the album go somewhere, like ran off to Korea to chase money from some client who he hadn't like made. It was like all of a sudden I had nothing. Like I had a friend who was like, sweetheart, sometimes you're in a state where you're like, your big accomplishment for the day is going to be like, go to yoga class, home and cry and blow your nose on your cat. Like it was just, and I remember being out with friends one night where I was supposed to be in this awesome space, supposed to be feeling good. I was certainly looking good. And I remember that I was trying to have a conversation with someone, and I just felt like I couldn't say another word, or I was going to burst into tears and never stop crying. And I went into the bathroom in my sexy shirt and my leather pants and my heels at this club with a line behind me, and I sobbed in the bathroom. Sobbed. And, like had to get it together. And the more I had to get it together and the more the people were knocking on the door behind me, the worse I felt. And I just had to come out with like, toilet paper, like pasted to my face, like so that my red eyes and it was awful. It was awful. I felt deeply humiliated inside and out. I didn't know who I was or how to be. I'd had plenty of times when I was down or I didn't feel so great, but I still put on a great show. Like this just was, I couldn't pretend. And that began the long process of me seeking. It was kind of the first round of what eventually became what I'm doing now. But I went into seeking, like, what do I actually care about? Like, I can't pretend to care about shit I don't care about right now. And I'm so heartbroken. I'm so deeply, deeply heartbroken. Everything, not just the boyfriend, but just the whole life that turns out I'm not going to have. Right. And all the ways that I was let down, all the ways I was just decimated. And I just start coming up with what I cared about. And what that led to about 8 months later was me going to Burning Man for the first time and having a complete revelation creatively and deciding that I wanted to focus on getting to the West Coast. I loved San Francisco. And then I got, that manifested the Mamma Mia tour, which took me to 4 months to San Francisco for 4 months and LA for 4 months. And that kind of restarted me and gave me a resurgent energy in my own creativity and started a whole new path for my artistic career. And I was still just at that point full-time professional artist. And so a tour led to a bunch of concept albums, and I got more into my own authority as an artist instead of like selling out to others. And that ultimately led to Jersey Boys. But then it was like that ebb and flow. And eventually I came back to that place where I was focused on the credits and the people and the career. And then I went to my second round of burnout, which 5 years later has yielded something that I feel very confident is actually sustainable for the rest of my life. But yeah, it was.
Could you tell me about that? Because your journey is really interesting. From a very artistic, creative music background, you're now in the field of personal development. You're now a coach / mentor. Could you tell us about that journey? Because
absolutely,
I myself find it intriguing, but I'm sure the listeners will find it very intriguing.
Sure. Thank you. So, it's funny. I have always been in the world of personal development. I've just been in it as a participant, right? Like I've been a personal development junkie since I was literally 12 years old when my dad did Earhart Seminars training and wanted the whole family to do it. And I campaigned to go into the adult training, not the young person's training, where technically the minimum age was 13 and I was 12 and they made an exception and put me in that training.
Wow.
So I have been doing personal development on a very intense level since I was 12. And I have always loved it. I've always been a connection and relationships junkie, a personal development junkie, and I say junkie lovingly, right? Like I passionately addicted, but not without action. I just want to say that because I am the productivity person. So it's like doing tons of seminars and workshops. Like I literally just took on a new client where we like mapped out the steps that we're in, and I got and he's like, creative, million ideas a second, and he's just like, should I do this course? Should I do that? I'm like, stop, focus right where you are, let everything else go for now. Sorry, I digress. So I was already in that world and I was already coaching and mentoring, but just in my field. What I like to say is it's in the last 2 years that I've started coaching civilians. Right? So people who are not already in the show business world. But I've been musicians, dancers for 20 years. As a music director, it's kind of the same way like a hairdresser and a bartender. They hear everybody's everything and they become like the advice person, right? So as a music director, my job is to teach the cast all of their vocals and bring out of them their best performances and the endurance and stamina to do 8 shows a week for sometimes years on end. And that involves a level of personal excavation. So bringing together a team, bringing together a cast, going to, actors and dancers and musicians are the most like crazy insecure people on the planet, right? And yet they have to show up amazing. So, coaching them has always involved a great deal of personal growth work and coaching myself in the of personal growth to be successful in an extraordinarily competitive field that changes all the time. Right. So just to stay abreast of that. So personal development and the consciousness of that and the work of that has been a part of my life personally and professionally for many, many years and brought me to a place where I have in the outside world a coaching business is that I wanted to move my business online. So one of the pieces of my restoration and reclaiming of my soul and my sanity and financial stability in my last burnout after my Cirque du Soleil show closed unexpectedly was to start a network marketing business. And I think for entrepreneurs who groove with a particular brand or a product line or something like that, that can be a great way to go. You build fantastic sales and marketing skills. You learn how to build and train and galvanize a team. Very worthy entrepreneurial pursuit. In my case, it was not my be-all and end-all, but it taught me a lot. And what I found was I was in these parallel places of I've got the artist career that I'm starting to finally figure out and it works for me. I've got the network marketing business, so I get the entrepreneurial thing. I want to move it all online. I want to have a more remote, virtual, do-anywhere business. I was very oriented towards world travel. I'm happy to say that this year I had like some bucket list trips to Bali and Hong Kong and Amsterdam and places. So it's all really finally coming to fruition. But that was a high priority for me. And so I was actively in search of coaches and programs that could help me navigate those waters of lots of different passions coming together and wanting to monetize them efficiently, powerfully, and most of the integrity. Like not just figure out what I could sell, because I was doing that with the network marketing business, and not just be an artist and make the music I want to make, because I was moving towards that in my artistic business, but it was certainly not replacing the income of a lot of commercials and Broadway shows. And so I wanted to marry all that stuff together. And so I, in quick succession between 2015 and 2017, worked with a bunch of mentors and programs to the point where I actually got clear on what was meaningful to me and where I could also help others, and where that beautiful growth edge of I'm a work in progress and I'm advancing my own soul's work as I help others advance theirs. And that was in the realm of perfectionism and creative output and productivity. So I always work with coaches now. I always recommend working with coaches and mentors. Do not try to do big stuff on your own. Just don't. Right. So anyone who's in the right place, right? Stay with it.
And I think what I kind of wanted to get from you is the fact that, which I'm kind of like really hearing, and I'm sure the listeners are really going to get a lot out of this, is your like focus. I think some things you can change. You can't change a lot of things. You can't change sometimes even your thoughts or your feelings, but you can change the quality of attention and focus you give something. And I know as a social worker, sometimes when you've got like millions of fires to put out, which fire do you, that fire do you choose to put out? What is your focus? And it's very hard to focus when you're dealing with very traumatized, not just one individual, but many individuals, and you have to divide your attention. And I kind of wanted you to share, what are the strategies that you used to deal with your burnout? You've spoken very how you were burnt out, and it really took a lot of courage to actually say you're not okay, because you were so used to putting this mask on.
Totally.
To say that I'm okay, my life's okay, and you were crying inside, but there was this big, massive smile. And although we come from different worlds, I think the reality is very, very similar for workers. We've got to put on this braveness when we're crumbling inside, we're broken. Would you say the brokenness is what started your journey of healing or beating burnout?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I started to say before that I had two things, and one was self-care, and the other is really what you're talking about, which is the focus, which is understanding and believing at a deep level that you do have a choice about the quality of your attention and where you place that attention. And by the way, the quality of attention and where you place that attention, which is something that I speak about a lot, comes from one of my mentors, Leona Silver, who I always like to credit with that, where she's like, we only have control over those two things, right? And one of the qualities of burnout, besides the actual exhaustion, emotional, spiritual, physical exhaustion, which is why the self-care piece is so important. But one of those qualities of burnout is that you just feel like you don't know what to do. You can't do anymore. You're done. It's just this, like, I'm done. I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to make the dreams I used to have come true. I don't have any fire for those dreams. I was saying for a couple of years, it's like I'm running on fumes from my 20s and 30s. It's just not there. And I think, at any age you can have burnout, but I think especially for women, and especially for people who are at a point in their career where it's like, I should have arrived by now. I should feel like I've done something by now. I should feel good about what I'm doing by now. I should get it right by now, right? Like, there's a whole series of ways that we kind of, wake up one day and go, what the fuck? Right? Like, what happened in my life? This is not my real life. I'm still doing my practice life. I'm still doing my getting ready to do life. Yeah. Where's my real life, right? And I can't keep doing it this way. Like, that was sort of the experience for me. I'm flexing with my hair. That was the experience for me, was I can't keep doing it this way. I need a better way to do my life. And in that, it was, so speaking of focus, like, where I want to go with that is, happening is no longer acceptable. For some people, it's a slow burn. For some people, it's a sharp wake-up call. But at some point, you reach that tipping point of no more do it anymore. So sometimes it shows up like, I can't do what I've been doing. Sometimes it shows up like I need a better way. Sometimes it shows up like just total exhaustion and confusion. I don't know what's next. I just feel so sad. Or it shows up like depression, right? But in any of those things, what's happening is you're still like in reaction, as is very understandable. You're doing what you've always done, right? You're still in reaction. And so the first step, and usually this comes after self-care, like usually it's like you need to sleep for 6 months and then figure it out, right? Some people have some financial urgency, like, well, I can't just quit my job or stop doing what I'm doing. Again, it comes back to the attention and the focus. What can you put down? What can you do less of? What can you, and a lot of times people, and I do this too, like, this is a perfectionistic thing. We have to control everything. We have to micromanage everything. We have to do our best. I have who's like, she was let go from a job. She's still contracted to finish the work. And she realized that she was still showing up to it like she's gunning for a promotion, and she doesn't even have the job anymore. Right. And it's like, where are you getting more work for yourself because of the way you think you need to show up, or because of what you think you need to do in order for others to accept you, or match your vision of what you think it should all look like? All of that is self-created. Like, a lot of times we, create our own burnout with that because of what we're bringing to it. So in that moment where you say no more, in that moment where you say, I need a better way, take an honest look, not like it's your fault, but like you are at cause as opposed to at fault. That you are at choice, that you actually can, in this moment, take one thing that's making you crazy and set it down, set it aside, even if it's just for a day, even if it's just for an hour. If that were completely clear and off your plate, and you took a deep breath, what would be possible for you? Where could you place your attention instead? Maybe you need a nap for an hour. Maybe you need to journal for an hour on what you cared about when you were 12 that you haven't thought about in a few years, right? It's like these small incremental shifts of acknowledging that you actually do have a choice in the matter. Because that's the other thing, especially with, we talk about the angry activist as sort of like an archetype. And a lot of times it's after years and years and years of doing for others and serving others and trying to execute a vision on making a difference for others, feeling like you are more failure than success leads to not just burnout like exhaustion, but real feelings about what's going on out there. Anger, resentment. It's poisonous. It eats up our energy.
Yeah. And I was a year ago. I was so bitter and so angry. And I needed to slow down. And I needed to take a really focused look at my life. And just when my back was against the wall, just slowing down, I don't think if I would have down, I realized I can't do this anymore. I need to look after myself. And I think her, Shanta Sumter, I know her, she talks about the 3 laws of generosity, about you give to others, and social workers and healthcare professionals are just constantly giving to others. That's our way of being. And for those who believe in God, or you give to God, or you give to legacy. But then a lot of us just fail or do not even realize the absolute necessity of giving to ourselves. Giving is when we give to ourselves, that's then when we can give bigger and better to others.
Right.
Thank you for your time. It's and I've just loved interviewing you. I've just got so much out of this myself.
I'm so glad.
I've got so much.
Thank you, Taniya.
And I'm sure people that are watching and listening have got just your generosity of people, like uplifts people. And I know lots of people are out there. Some of them might not even recognize that they're burnt out, and that's okay. But I think some of the signs and symptoms that you've given, and some of the questions are really important. The questions that you start asking, that's super important. That and sharing your story.
My pleasure. My pleasure, sweetheart. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much. Bye, Deborah.
My pleasure. Bye,
Thanks
everybody.
for joining us.